Welcome, all my fellow Redskin brethren and sister. It's news that's nightly about the Redskins. Welcome to the Redskins Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. The Redskins head coach Jay Gruden was recently on a conference call. And for those of you not aware, every single week, every coach in the NFL is required to take a conference call with opposing media members to field questions. Obviously, the media members of the opposite team can talk to their head coach, as we often hear with Jay Gruden, and I talk about his press conferences on this program nightly, but the opposition would like to get a hold of the other team's coach. And so the way to do that is a conference call that the coach goes through, answers questions, and that is where these quotes came from, where we talk about Dwayne Haskins potentially getting a chance sooner rather than later. Young Simba may be coming sooner than many of us, including myself, thought after Monday night's loss to the Bears. I thought that there was really no true definitive, and we still don't have one nailed down. Jay never gave a specific time, but this is the first time we've heard him talk about the possibility of Dwayne Haskins getting into the starting lineup. And I think we all are in the agreement that once Haskins sees the field, there's no going back. He's your starter for the remainder of the season, barring some kind of injury. So I think that we're getting closer to that point. Now, let me say this before we get into the specifics of what was said and talk about Jay Gruden and his comments. But I think some of this is directed by Daniel Snyder. I don't think that this is all Jay Gruden's doing. I think Snyder might have gotten into Jay's ear and said, look, if we don't beat the Giants, or, after the Patriots game, and I don't know specifically what was said to him, but I believe Daniel Snyder, because we went from Jay being definitive, and I've told you, never truly trust Jay after a game. He's emotional, he's upset, he's going to say the first thing that enters his brain. And again, I would do the same thing. That's why I don't really love these press conferences and these interviews with players 15 and 20 minutes after the game has met its conclusion, because guys are still in the heat of the moment. They're upset, and you never know what's going to be said. I always like to give Jay 24 hours to then come back to the podium, or at least another 16 hours is usually when we hear from him the day after a game. But on the Monday night game in particular, it was less than 24. But normally on a Sunday afternoon after the game, we hear from him the next afternoon. And it's right around 24 hours. He's had a chance to decompress, had a chance to look at some film, also had a chance to calm down and gather his thoughts. And then generally what he says then, that's what I run with. So after the game, he was like, nope, not benching Colt. We need more time to gel. I'm not going to be taking guys in and out of the lineup every 5 seconds, that sort of thing. You could tell a little bit of that was tongue-in-cheek, and it was a guy that was frustrated. Redskins had just dropped to 0-3. It was not a great performance, especially in the first half. So he was frustrated, obviously. But you come back now, short turnaround, quick week of work, because you had a Monday night game. Giants going to be on Sunday afternoon on the road in the Meadowlands. Got to prepare for that. And so Jay was on a conference call with the New York media, and obviously with the Daniel Jones success from last week, they were asking questions about Haskins and when will he get his opportunity to start in Washington, which prompted Jay to give us two pieces of sound bites, well, really two pieces of information, two quotes specifically that we are going to run with as fans and get excited about. The first is which he's not far away, okay, quote unquote. Jay Gruden said about Dwayne Haskins, which is a far cry from what everyone's been reporting. And hell, what Jay has led us to believe, that Dwayne's nowhere near being ready to start. Well, that's not what Jay said out of his own mouth to the New York media, where he basically said not far away in terms of the preparedness of one Dwayne Haskins. Now, obviously, Jay can't know how he'll perform in a regular season game with live bullets and things of that nature. But as far as preparedness and on the whiteboard, as Jay talked about in his presser with the local media, which we'll talk about in the next segment, Dwayne's ready and not too far off in that regard. So Jay said that. And then the other quote is the one that I think stands out the most. And he says he will get his chance. And I think that one is really vague because we all know Dwayne's going to get his chance. The question isn't if he's going to get his chance, it's when is he going to get that chance. Now, Jay did not answer that, and he can't know the answer to that right now because let's say Case Keenum comes back from injury, which we're going to talk about in the next segment because Case Keenum did not practice today, and we'll talk about that. We'll start unpacking some of these things and start to connect some dots as we often do here on the Redskins Nightly News. But if Case were to come back on Sunday with a strong performance, 3 touchdown passes, no interceptions, Redskins win the game, 31-21 over the Giants. And then the following week, somehow miraculously, the Redskins beat Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. Not going to happen, but just hypothetically speaking here, the Dwayne Haskins experiment will be put on pause at that point. With the Dolphins the following week and the Redskins with the chance to get back to 3-3, there's no talk of Dwayne Haskins at that moment. So obviously, we don't know when exactly this is going to happen, but if the season keeps trending in the direction that it's trending in right now with the Redskins winless and a date on the road versus the Giants who have confidence all of a sudden after the performance of one Danny Dimes a week ago, if they're able to defeat the Redskins, the next week the Redskins go home for the Patriots, you're staring at 0-5 at that point. What's holding up the process of getting young Simba into the lineup and getting the Dwayne Haskins era started in Washington? And so I'm thinking if not by the Dolphins game, it may be sooner. I think if you're 0-5, the Dolphins game is the one you circle on the calendar, and that's the one that's probably going to be the first start of one Dwayne Haskins. If not, let's say the Redskins really struggle and Case Keenum struggles and Colt McCoy, who also was back at practice. We'll talk about all of these things. Like I said, we're going to unpack a lot of different things as we get to the next segment. But if let's say you got Case Keenum struggling in the first half of that Giants game, similar to what he did versus the Bears. Let's say he struggles and he throws 2 interceptions and has another fumble in the first half versus the Giants, and the Redskins go into the halftime break trailing 24-3. You could see a situation where Dwayne Haskins comes out as your starter for the second half of that game, and then moving forward, Haskins your guy. Now, there's a caveat that you have to throw in there and you have to start to consider. And again, I brought this up yesterday. I brought it up the day before yesterday, and we're going to continue to talk about this because it is a real thing, and that is the health of Colt McCoy. That takes us to our next segment in other news. So Colt McCoy was back at practice today, and we talked about this yesterday, that Colt McCoy could potentially be back, and we don't know where he is right now. Jay said, look, I still haven't seen this man throw the football in over a month. So there's that. But Colt was out there. Today was a walkthrough. So not a lot going on for the Redskins. Wasn't live bullets, wasn't a padded practice or anything of that sort. They weren't out there really running anything at full speed. Everything was a walkthrough, essentially what it sounds like. So I still haven't really seen Colt McCoy in a practice situation, but Colt was out there for the walkthrough, which is a big change from where he has been in the past couple of weeks. So Colt McCoy is interesting because if Jay feels like he's ready to be the backup, right now it's Case 1 and Dwayne 2. But if Colt comes in, I think there is a barrier between Case, Colt, and then Dwayne. I think Colt comes in and automatically is your number 2 if he's ready to rock and roll because he knows this offense very well. And I think that would put Jay in a position where he's not dressing 3 quarterbacks. He's just not going to do it, which is what I posed. I believe it was yesterday we talked about on the Nightly News that there's a situation where Dwayne Haskins could not even be active, and that's something that us as fans don't want to see. We want Haskins dressed and ready to go and be and at a moment's notice be ready to go in the game. Again, if the Redskins are getting trounced on the road versus the Giants at halftime because of another poor performance by Case Keenum, no one wants to see Colt McCoy come in and try to rally the team back. We want to see Dwayne Haskins in that situation try to rally us back. But again, if you put in Dwayne Haskins, there's no going back. I don't think there's a situation where he comes in for a half and then you take him out the next week and Colt McCoy is the starter. I don't think that's what the Redskins are planning to do. I think the maturation will be from Colt or from Case to Colt, from Colt to Dwayne, and once Dwayne gets in, then it's Dwayne Haskins' show from there on out. But again, if you insert Colt and Colt starts to play well, that's going to prolong what we all want as fans, and that's seeing number 7 out on the football field. So it's a really tough situation right now for Jay Gruden because Jay's just thinking about winning. And again, I think he feels like of all the quarterbacks, Colt gives him the best chance to win. And so that was going to be the starter. If you don't know, now you know. And I told you this in the preseason. Colt was going to be the starter. It was his job to lose. And unfortunately, injury saw him lose his spot as the Redskins starting quarterback. But if he is healthy and Jay feels like he is ready to rock and roll, I could easily see Jay inserting Colt McCoy into the lineup and giving him every opportunity to wrestle that job away and solidify that job for much of this season to try to get the Redskins back into a competitive state this season. Again, I don't see that happening. You start 0-3, you're pretty much on your deathbed, but we'll see what happens with the Redskins as they are a team that has a schedule that if they can start to right some of their wrongs, which none of us should have any confidence that they're going to be able to do. We've saw nothing that gives us the confidence to think that they're going to turn anything around on defense and that this offense can be consistent. So I don't think the Redskins are ever going to get to a place where we think, man, we've got a shot this season. So that's why the conversation about Dwayne Haskins is becoming more and more prevalent. But as you listen to Jay talk at the podium today, he did speak. He talked about injuries from the Monday night game. Obviously, Case Keenum did not practice today. He had x-rays along with Brandon Sheriff. Both were precautionary x-rays, but nonetheless, again, as I talked about the x-ray or the MRI with Casanova McKenzie in his hip, you don't have x-rays and MRIs if you're fine, okay? You do those sometimes as a precautionary measure to make sure that there's nothing seriously wrong, but obviously there's some type of discomfort and something is wrong that forces you to get an MRI or x-rays to try to figure out if there is a serious problem or not. So the fact that both Sheriff and Keenum both had x-rays taken tells you that there's something going on there. Not quite sure. Don't know the severity of either one's situation. Jay did not elaborate on either one of their situations. He just said neither of them practiced, nor did Chase Rouye practice today. So again, you're getting to one of those situations. Remember, I talked about this yesterday, how Chase left the game briefly. So did Sheriff. Both came back and played. But if you leave the game, that means something is wrong. And so both of those guys were able to finish the contest. But as I've mentioned, I said, look, adrenaline takes over while you're out there playing. You're able to finish the game. You think you're fine. And then afterwards, you know, your blood gets to settle, swelling settles, and all of a sudden you don't feel well. And you can't move around as well. And next thing you know, you're out 2 to 4 weeks. So I'm not saying that's the situation with Sheriff, Rouye, or Keenum. Sounds like Keenum is going to be just fine. Sounds like they held him out of practice today because it was a walkthrough, because, you know, they wanted to just kind of take it easy on him. Today wasn't a necessary day for him to be out there. So it sounds like Keenum's going to be fine. Listening to Jay, he's going to be ready to go for Sunday. But Jay did not rule out the fact that Keenum may not be able to go. And if that is in fact the case, he did say that Dwayne would be the next in line to get the start. Now, again, let me throw in this caveat. He said, look, haven't seen Colt yet. Don't know what Colt looks like. We'll probably get our first look at him on Thursday. If Colt looks really good and we feel really comfortable about him, then he could, in fact, jump the line and become your de facto backup and potential starter in the event that Case Keenum isn't ready to go. I know a lot of you don't want to hear that, but look, you have to know that Jay wants to go down swinging with his guy, and Colt has been his guy all along. So this should be no surprise to any of you out there. Bottom line is, Dwayne, and Jay said this at his press conference, he better be ready because at a moment's notice, he could be in there. And so it's going to be really, this week is so fascinating for so many different reasons, especially when you're talking about the quarterbacks, because what if Case isn't healthy? Then all of a sudden, you could be staring at Dwayne Haskins versus Daniel Jones, which would be a massive storyline in NFL circles. If Case is ready to go, and then Colt says, yep, I'm ready to go too, coach, what does that mean for Dwayne? Is he the odd man out? Is he the guy that's going to be inactive on Sunday versus the Giants? What if Case is able to go, Colt's not able to go, and Dwayne is the backup as he's been for the first 3 weeks, and Case stinks it up? And does Jay go to Dwayne at some point versus the Giants in week 4? What if Case ends up getting hurt and we get Dwayne, but Dwayne doesn't play well, and then after the game, Colt's feeling ready to go, and you say, all right, so Case is out of there, but Colt's now in. What does that do to the psyche of Dwayne Haskins? There's so many things to unpack here, which is why this situation is so fluid, but so fascinating at the same time. This is a situation definitely worth keeping a close eye on because we don't know how this is going to play out. And now with the injury, don't know the severity of it, but the injury to Case Keenum complicates matters because if Case is healthy and Colt is healthy, I'm thinking those are your first 2 quarterbacks and Dwayne's on the outside looking in. But with Case's injury situation, you got to protect yourself because we know Colt could go in for 1 series and injure himself and have to come out. So going with 2 quarterbacks in the event that Case isn't 100%, but you start him and have Colt as the backup, you're really rolling the dice because we know that Colt McCoy is made of glass. And if you put him out there and if Case is compromised, you put Colt in, he gets injured, now you go into an emergency quarterback. Now your game plan is all effed up. So if I'm Jay, I don't know if I'm comfortable rolling with two quarterbacks, with Colt being my backup because Colt is a guy that we've seen go in for a series or 2 and get injured. So I think this is a really dicey situation. Hard to really decipher what's going to take place. I think it's going to be paramount to listen to Jay throughout the course of this week to find out who's up, who's not, who's healthy, who isn't, who's practicing, who's not, and what his thought process is when it comes to these quarterbacks and what the pecking order will be for the upcoming game versus the Giants. So many things to discuss. He also talked about Chase Roulier and Brandon Sheriff both not practicing. He says, look, I don't know the severity of either one of their injuries. Both of them didn't feel good enough to go today. We'll continue to monitor them throughout the course of the week. But he said, look, we need one of these guys to go. You would hope that one of these guys can go on Sunday. If we can't have both, we at least need one of them to go. Now, he said that in the event that there is no Chase Roulier, the first guy up would be Tony Bergstrom to start at center. He did say that in that event, Ross Pierschbaker would be active on Sunday versus the Giants as his backup. Now, he said if Sheriff can't go, then you would get Wes Martin in that role as the starting guard. And again, you would have Ross Pierschbaker as the backup because if something were to happen to Wes Martin at that point, then Tony Bergstrom would slide over to guard and Ross Pierschbaker would slide into center. We're already having musical chairs at the offensive line positions already, and we're only 4 weeks into the season. This is what we do. We should be accustomed to this. Guys get injured on this team, it seems like, on a regular basis. Let's hope that those injuries aren't serious. Both are able to go, and we don't have to worry about the possibilities of Tony Bergstrom in, Wes Martin in, Ross Pierschbaker in, or any of that stuff. But we'll see. It's a little dicey right now, and we're in a position where both of those, not one, but 2, both of those guys could not go on Sunday versus the Giants. And finally, speaking of the Giants, let's start to preview it. Again, quick turnaround from Monday night. We talked about the game yesterday. Usually we would kind of close the chapter on the Bears game or the game that played on Sunday. Normally we would close the chapter on that Tuesday, start talking about the upcoming game on Wednesday. Well, we closed the chapter on Chicago essentially yesterday. So we're going to move on to the Giants and just give you a brief preview of what to expect from this football game. Obviously, the biggest storyline is Daniel Jones, a.k.a. Danny Dimes, and what he was able to do last week and how he was the guy that was taken before Dwayne Haskins, and how Dwayne Haskins said the league done messed up because he thought he should have been the pick at number 6 to the Giants and not the other way around. Well, we're going to actually get a chance up close and personal to see Daniel Jones for the first time. And look, the Redskins are in a really, really tough spot because you don't want Daniel Jones playing really well. If he does play really well, it's going to make the whole Dwayne Haskins narrative that much more spicy. If you want to put a little bit of water on that fire because it's starting to flame a little bit, if you want to put a little bit of water on that fire and cool it off a bit, you go out and you force Daniel Jones into some mistakes, make him not play as well as he did a week ago against Tampa's defense. And, it's funny. Everyone's like, man, Tampa's defense is trash. Well, what is our defense? Our defense is trash. So there's a distinct possibility that he could go out and throw for another three buck and some change and a couple more touchdowns and run for another touchdown or two and light us up just like he did the Buccaneers. And this time in front of the home crowd. And they will be going nuts and be raucous. And it's a storyline that to me makes a game of an 0-3 team versus a 1-2 team really juicy. This game actually has some legs because people care about Daniel Jones, and now there's a side angle of Dwayne Haskins, and when is he going to get on the field? Could he actually see the field on Sunday? So there's a storyline there. The Giants stink on defense. I've watched every single Giants contest this season. Mike Evans, Mike Gee went nuts last week. Jameis Winston went nuts. They were killing the Giants secondary. They've got an aging veteran on their team that doesn't look the same in the Jackrabbit, Janoris Jenkins. He was getting torched by Mike Evans. So I think we could have some success. Their pass rush is solid. It's not great, but our offensive line could be in shambles. So that's a to-be-continued situation there. No Saquon Barkley really makes life a lot easier for the Redskins defensively. But again, you don't want to let your guard down because Daniel Jones is a handful, and he can use his legs to extend plays. But really, Saquon Barkley was going to be a tough guy to deal with the way the Redskins have been playing defense. Now, you take that out of the equation. You would think that would make it a little bit easier for the Redskins to defend Daniel Jones. But again, I don't put anything past this Redskins defense. And so we'll see what happens. When I look at the Giants' skill positions, I'm not really that impressed with anybody out there except Evan Ingram. We've had issues with the tight end over the years, and Sterling Shepard. Those are the two guys that I think can really hurt us in the past game. Both of those guys had big games versus the Buccaneers last week. If I'm the Redskins, those are the two guys I'm looking to take away in the past game. If you got to choose one, take Evan Ingram away. He's the guy that's the fastest on that Giants football team, and it's not even close. He's the guy with legit 4.4 speed. He's the guy that can hurt you, and I don't want to see John Bostic matched up one-on-one with him. I don't want to see him running down the middle of the football field unmolested with nobody within 5 yards of him. If that happens, he's going to have a field day, and we're going to be in trouble defensively. There are so many different things that we've got to break down with this Giants football team. However, we'll do that tomorrow. We'll save the intricate details, but that was just a little bit of a preview of what's to come in a massive showdown for the Redskins. Again, you're already 0-2 in the division. You're 0-3 overall. You lose this game, and for all intents and purposes, it's done for real. 0-3, Jay said at the presser today, he said, look, teams have been in much worse situations. It's not impossible to come back from 0-3. This is not mission impossible, essentially, is what Jay said, and I'm paraphrasing here. Teams have been in much worse situations. He said 0-3 is doable, and he's right. All right, like I told you last week, the Houston Texans were 0-3. They ran off 9 straight games. We are not the Houston Texans. We don't have Deshaun Watson at quarterback, and we don't have that Texans defense, and we don't have Romeo Cornell calling the shots as the defensive coordinator. So we're not the Texans, but point taken, okay? 0-3 doesn't mean you're dead. To me, it does, all right? But mathematically speaking, you're not dead. All right, 0-4 with the Patriots on the horizon means you're dead. All right, so this is a big one for the Redskins. I thought last week was code red. I'm not deeming this code red because I think we're already dead. All right, code red comes before you're dead. You lose code red and you're dead. So we're dead in my eyes. But we'll see what happens, how the Redskins, the thing that I did walk away impressed with, even though it was still a poor performance, especially the first half, was the way the Redskins fought. I told you, when the Redskins were going down with 7.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, down 28-15, I'm saying to myself, why not us tonight? Why can't we have the impossible miracle comeback? All right, the Bears have already took their foot off the gas pedal, and I was thinking, why not us? And I told you, that's one of my flaws, is that I'm competitive and I'm always trying to figure out a way, even when it seems like it's damn near impossible, I'm always trying to figure out a way how we can still win the football game. And I thought we battled back, man. I saw some guys with fight in them that really, really thought we had a chance to come back. and we fought our asses off. And if not for Case Keenum deciding to go rogue and take it into his own hands and fumble the damn football away, who knows what would have happened in that football game. I would have loved to have seen what would have happened if we could have gotten into the end zone and cut the deficit to 28-22. I would have loved to have seen what the offense of the Bears would have done. And more importantly, what our defense would have done in that situation. Probably allowed the Bears to run out the final 6.5 minutes of the game with a 8-play drive that spanned the rest of the game and killed the clock. But that's nor here nor there. I'm anxious to see what week 4 holds in store for the Redskins. Anxious to see what this quarterback situation is going to look like. And really anxious to see Daniel Jones up close and personal. I watched every single snap last week versus Tampa, was thoroughly impressed. I also saw a guy that had some chances to make some mistakes. There was a chance for a pick 6 in there that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers safety just flat out dropped. So it's not like this guy's perfect, but he was damn good last week, and we're going to get to see him up close and personal, and I can't wait. So in any event, I'm your man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. This has been the Redskins Nightly News. Remember, we've got skin in the game. Why? Because we're Skins fans for life. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the Louie T Network if you haven't already done so, and share it as well. I'll see you guys tomorrow.